We are live. We are live. Hello, everyone. This is Andrew Hall. With me today is Kaytlin Bailey. Kaytlin Bailey was on my old show a number of times. That was the Naked Diner podcast. And I guess she's on the YouTube channel. Let me give you a little bit of her bio from her site, KaytlinBailey.com. Kaytlin Bailey is a contrarian by nature and a provocateur by trade. As both a political activist and a comedian, it has been her job to throw rhetorical rocks at proverbial walls. She came out as a sex worker in 2013. She went on to write about her experiences for Vice and other publications. Her one-man show, Cuntagious, sold out performances in multiple NYC theater festivals. As the host of the popular podcast, The Oldest Profession, Kaytlin explores the history of sex workers. Each episode tells the tale of a different old pro from history. She recently joined the team at Decriminalize Sex Work as the Director of Communications to help to direct the growing support for sex workers' rights towards a national strategy to end the prohibition of prostitution in the United States. Though I imagine I have to amend that since I believe I read that you are no longer with the organization.
Today is my last day there, and instead of being there, I'm doing your show. So that's where we're at right now. It's so funny. Like I wrote that bio. I feel like I love that bio, and every time I hear that bio read to me, I feel mocked.
You feel mocked?
I feel mocked, and I feel self-conscious, and like I am being made fun of. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That is really funny. You know, every once in a while, someone will share on Facebook one of the posts I've written for my blog, and I'm like, this is stupid. Just the title and everything. It's like, oh, that's one of mine.
Oh, that's one of mine. Oh, wow. Yeah, nice.
Kaytlin, it's been a while since we've talked. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Yeah, how long has it been? At least 2 years, right?
Yeah, it was last time that we talked was before you got married. I know that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was after I saw your show Cuntagious over in New York City, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
I had a really good time watching it. Talk about the Oldest Profession podcast.
Yeah, well, you brought up a couple of things. I've been
Let's unpack that. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack.
I've been married a year as of 2 days ago, so we're still newlyweds. We've now moved 6 times. In the first 12 months because of the pandemic and related chaos. We've been ping-ponging around different temporary locations in North Carolina since March. I thank you so much for coming out and seeing Cuntagious. I'm really proud of it. I was scheduled to start, I feel like I'm such a brat, like whining about this, but I was in the middle of developing my second one-woman show, Whore's Eye View, and I just finished writing it in Nashville and was ready to start like getting it up on its feet in staged readings in New York, and I was really excited to start that, but then I haven't been able to touch it since March. So, but instead of doing those things, I relaunched the Oldest Profession podcast, and I'm really proud of it. And I quit my day job to like focus on it more and turn it into more of a thing. It's like part nonprofit, part storytelling show, part like advocacy network. You know, Old Pro Productions seeks to tell better sex worker stories, and we're starting with the Oldest Profession podcast, and we're also including my body of work, you know, Cuntagious, and then this Whore's Eye View is also sort of like within that company, and we want to destigmatize and decriminalize sex work.
You know, I just want to say we got a couple of people in the chat. We have Critical Cripple and Ian Davenport. Hello.
Oh, hey.
Good to see you. Good that you're here. Whenever I see you online, I took a look at some of your YouTube videos on other shows that you've been on. You are just a font of information, and you're able just like this, about obscure, not, you know, and it's sad. It's sad that they're obscure historical facts.
We should know about the first woman who ran for president in 1872.
Victoria Woodhull, right? Victoria Woodhull.
Especially after Hillary's campaign. I feel like we should have and we could have revisited that history, and we didn't, and it's because she's an old pro. You know, and I feel like we're afraid to engage with that, and I think it is like I don't know. I'm obsessed, right? Which is part of like my artist brain and activist brain, and like I just am this person. But I really do think that prostitution, the closer you look, the more things it reveals, and it feels like this philosophical key that opens other doors, right? Like if you don't like people doing things that are bad for them for money to survive, you don't hate prostitution. You hate the capitalist system we've built. We can make other choices. Like people don't have to have sex for money to eat. We can just feed everybody. But
Right.
but like we cannot arrest our way out of this problem.
I had Howie Hawkins from the Green Party on yesterday, and part of the Green Party platform is decriminalizing sex worker.
Yep. Oh,
Sex
really?
work.
The Green Party? That's great.
Yep.
Because I know libertarians were first. We got to give them that. I know
Oh,
it's
yeah.
uncomfortable, but libertarians were first, followed shortly and with much more fanfare from the Socialist Democrats. And
Yeah.
so now Green Party, that's awesome. I heard Elizabeth Warren was grappling with this issue seriously, it felt like. You
So
know?
what's the difference between Democrats and Republicans?
Well, Republicans have a fetish for locking people up for pervy stuff, and
The hell you
Democrats,
say?
yeah, and Democrats have an instinct to help people that they can't be bothered to understand, and that is really a 1-2 punch with sex work because we both want to crack down on it, and also all of the help that is offered is punitive and shameful and opposite land because it starts from a place of, well, the first problem that we have to solve here is you have to stop having sex for money. That's the first most emergency problem. Once we start that, then we can talk about housing and food and getting your kids back. But like until you stop selling pussy, we cannot help you. And it's like, well, damn.
It's fascinating that people who would say that you should own your own body,
I know, it's so crazy.
or that people, free marketers
Yep, I know.
are like, well, you should be able to make money the way you want to, but a lot of them just draw the line.
And I really do think it stems from it's shocking to me in how many corners of our minds and our assumptions where we really do actually struggle with this women are people thing, like whole people, full adult autonomous individual people, because we think of them as breeders, right? We think of them as like that, like part of our body. There's an interest in, our partner or the state, or like a while ago, our dads, less so now, but like more and more the state. And so, it's fascinating to me because I know a lot of mainstream feminists, like, suburban moms, that, have no idea what they're talking about, but are just confident, very confident that prostitution is the worst thing that you could do for yourself. It's worse than starving to death. It's worse than being homeless. and onto this idea that they're like damaging their body and that we collectively have a responsibility to try to stop that from happening. Yeah.
Now, I like to. People who come on the show, they're typically liberals or atheist liberals, or people trying to change other people's minds about certain topics.
Right.
What have you found to be the most effective way in shifting people's opinions about sex work and sex workers?
It's very counterintuitive, and it's not
No.
something that comes naturally to me, but it's listening.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, it's the oldest profession. Sex work is so many different things to so many different people. Is if I get you talking enough, right? Are you a Jesus freak? Dude, you have no idea how much time Jesus spent just hanging out with prostitutes, not being a judgmental dick about it. Like, that's like all of chapter 7. Like, it's just him hanging out with hoes, being like, what can I do for you? Right? You're a health person, right? You're like, World Health Organization, masks mandatory. Well, the World Health Organization supports the full decriminalization of sex work because everywhere it's been done, STIs drop dramatically because when you increase the agency of sex workers and you stop hunting them, they suddenly are better able to self-advocate for themselves. For condoms, it's easier for them to access medical care. They don't have to lie to their doctor because they're afraid of being arrested. There are a lot of positive health outcomes that come from sex work. Are you a libertarian, don't tread on me, like pretty explicit racist, even though you don't identify that way person? Well, dude, the criminalization of sex work is just an invitation for the government to install cameras in intimate spaces and fucking come and arrest you. Look what happened to Robert Kraft. Yeah. That is banana. So it's where whoever you're talking to, you can find a story with someone that looks like them in it. Someone that they can empathize with, where they don't have to work too hard to imagine the situations and the circumstance of somebody that got caught up getting arrested for doing adult things with another grown-up.
You know, that's brilliant, because what I try to do, I try to use the argument that the person that I'm talking to would resonate with. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of activists get hung up. I think being a comedian helps, being able to figure out what room you're playing to, who you're talking to, what's going to land.
Ironically has helped with listening. It's very funny that like a job where you talk at people has made me better at listening than my activism training, because activism is about performative listening. And if you cannot hear your audience as a comic, you're just going to bomb until you quit.
Right. And I think that probably goes, like we were saying, about activism too, and speaking with people. If you can connect with them somehow and understand what argument will work with them, you'll feel better and you'll change more hearts and minds at the same time.
100%. Yeah. And it's like this, we're just so right. You can come at this issue from almost any angle and arrive at the same place, that like arresting people, putting someone in handcuffs over a hand job is just like wrong and dumb and like a waste of our taxpayer resources. Like, I don't care why it's a problem, but it's a problem.
Right. You know, as, you know, being a man of a certain age, old, that is, you know, I have seen the legalization of gay marriage, marijuana here in the state of Massachusetts, you know, recreational marijuana.
In like 33 states. This is now a trend.
You know, I might be a bright-eyed optimist, but I'm actually hopeful that within my lifetime, I may actually see the decriminalization of sex workers.
I don't know, because this here is the rub, right?
Tell me.
Because I do believe that the decriminalization of sex work is in fact, and the destigmatization of sex work is in fact an existential threat to the patriarchy. Yeah. Because you can't have a patriarchy if you don't know who the dads are. And if you are not controlling the sexual behavior of women, like whorephobia and slut shaming and all of this stuff, and we're starting to chip away at it, right? But we've divided the feminine, right, into this like ancient Madonna, whore, Eve, Lilith, like thing for so long that if we erase those false divisions, all right. I feel like we're going to get fought pretty hard here. Part of me feels like that Trump's presidency is like, yes, absolutely, it's response to Obama, and yes, absolutely, this is like white supremacy, but it's also misogyny on a deep reactive level. And I do want to say, as a student of history, we've gotten to places where women had equal rights, freedom of movement, freedom of expression in societies before. And we have lost that ground.
What is remarkable that we've been in this conversation for 13 minutes and we didn't bring up Donald Trump until just now.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. No, but he's like a cartoon of white supremacist misogyny. Like, yeah.
Tell me about the dog whistle of Nasty Woman.
Oh, I'm literally wearing that shirt. So... that was a radicalizing moment for me, right?
Tell me about that.
I wasn't a huge Hillary Clinton fan. Like, part of it is just like, I don't know. I was 12 when the Monica Lewinsky scandal happened, and I identified way more with Monica Lewinsky than I did with Hillary. So there's always been kind of a sore spot in there of being like, bitch, like, come on. You know, like, 22-year-old intern, Jesus. But whatever. So... I wasn't a huge fan, but when Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton a nasty woman on that stage, he was calling her a whore. And all of her first ladiness and her senateness and her standing by Bill Clintonness and her like none of that shit mattered. And I recognized it immediately. And I felt like this is the moment where we can finally unite feminists and sex workers together. This is the moment where they can get it, because you can call any one of us a whore. Public woman and prostitute were synonymous for huge chunks of history because only sex workers were able to participate in the public square without threatening their chastity and being stoned to death. Like, or they were too poor to matter and couldn't read and I mean, I'm not. Poor people matter. I just mean like when you're occupying space in the public square, you know, if you're working 16-hour days in a field, then like probably that's not happening. So, yeah. But so it's been very illuminating, I think, to like dig into this history in a micro way, because I think we have a tendency to flatten our historic stories in this country. We have this like narrative of like an inevitable progressive march, like even as we've accepted, like, okay, Columbus was a genocidal maniac, right? Yeah. But then things got progressively better from there until everybody got their rights and the civil rights movement happened, and now we're in the modern times where things are like, and it's like that's not
that is not how life works. It is a series of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, to tell you the truth.
People don't really change, but technology does. And I feel like there has been this war between nurturing ideas and like narcissistic consumerism and the exploitation that comes with that have been like battling forever. And I feel like I don't know. I am kept awake at night with like a deep anxiety that seems to be coming from a deep place in my body. That's like, I don't know, if we can't fork here, we're not going to make it another 100 years as a species. Like, yeah.
That's a tough pill to take, but I agree with you that we seem to be at a pivot point.
Right.
And things could go in a variety of really bad ways.
Right, yeah. Why'd we build the nukes if we knew we couldn't use them? Right,
and mutually assured destruction will only work a certain number of times before something, trumps that, or people make a mistake. And what limits, what really stops a limited nuclear exchange? Because, we live in a mad world we're a mad species, and that could really happen.
Yeah.
So, Kaytlin, what's the difference between decriminalizing sex work and making it legal and regulating it? Parse that out, because a lot of people would go, why are we decriminalizing it? Shouldn't we just make it legal?
Regulate it. Tax it.
And unions and tax it.
Protect the workers from the violence with the laws.
That does seem... Yeah. So tell me what's wrong. What is fallacious with that argument?
Sure. So I think I understand how people get there, right? There are a lot of really, really smart labor rights activists that think of sex work as a labor issue, and they come at it through a framework of like regulations and unions and organizing, because sex work is work, right? Mm-hmm. And my counter argument to that is it is also sex. And the problem with creating a regulatory structure around sex work is that you immediately create a 2-tiered system of people that are participating in that regulatory structure and people who are not. And you end up sort of concentrating and making worse and pushing further underground a huge segment of the black market that continues to exist, because not everyone can or is able to get a license, register with the local sheriff, get hired by an organization that has to go through some sort of licensing structure. And the best example of this is Nevada, right? So Nevada is the only state in the union with legal regulated prostitution. And it has the highest arrest rate per capita for prostitution of any other state, right?
Explain that to me.
I'm going to walk you through it.
Please
do. So less than 5% of like all of the commercial sex that is happening in Nevada is happening in the legal brothels. Because in order to work as a legal licensed prostitute in Nevada, you have to register with the sheriff, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a subpoenable thing about you forever. So you can imagine how this plays out in like child custody cases, for example,
Sure.
or why somebody wouldn't want to be registered as a legal prostitute in Nevada, even though it's legal, right? So then you have to get hired by a brothel, which are overwhelmingly owned by men, because not
Yeah.
only are the licenses so expensive, but you also have to be a member of like the Nevada Good Old Boys Club to get one of them, because they're like a very limited commodity. They only allow like 7, or I don't know what the numbers are, but like you just can't just put up a brothel anywhere. You have to get mandatory STD tests that you pay for and also become public information, so you don't enjoy the same rights to privacy as other citizens. And you have to adhere to this network of like confusing and conflicting state, local, and like house rules. Like, for example, if you are working as a legal, registered, licensed prostitute in a brothel in Nevada, you can't leave that brothel and then go get a drink at a bar in town. You are now breaking the law.
Say that again, please, because I don't
So
think I wrapped my
yeah,
mind
okay.
around that.
So you're working as a legal licensed prostitute in Nevada, right? You got a 12-hour shift. You when a customer walks in, you show up to
Right.
the lineup. You do everything the manager says, just like if you work at a fucking restaurant or whatever. You like wear the uniform, right? You sleep there. 12-hour. Your shift is over. You have a break. You cannot leave that brothel and then go to a bar in the like next town over and have a drink. That is illegal for you to do as a licensed prostitute in Nevada.
That's
because
madness.
they don't want you turning tricks in that bar.
Right.
So legalizing, regulating, right, is just a way to create this whorephobic web, right?
Whorephobic. I like that.
Thank you.
I
I didn't
like that
coin
a
it.
lot. I
But
like
like
that a lot.
it's all about protecting society from the prostitute, this like dehumanized, infectious, like, you know, we hold on to a lot of false beliefs around sex workers. And so that's the danger of regulation. And I think it's naive to believe that we can ask every sex worker in the country to like put themselves on a list, right? So that we can like, you know, regulate it and then not have something bad happen. Like, we burned a lot of witches, is just what I'm saying.
Right. There,
Like, yeah.
I would be very cautious and skeptical, I guess is a
Exactly.
nice way of saying. I'd be very skeptical about signing up for anything like those poor DACA people, right?
So I think a better way to think about it is sex work is first and foremost sex, right? You are mostly talking about intimate activity between two consenting adults. And that should not be a crime, whether money is exchanged or not. So I think that like sex work is actually more appropriate to sort of fit under the LGBT umbrella of legal changes, right? Like when we stopped arresting people for being gay, we didn't make, if you want to like do butt stuff with your buddy, you don't have to like fill out a form or like go talk to a bureaucrat or like sign anything. You're just not doing something you can be arrested for, unless, you know, that person raises their hand and says, I didn't want to do that, or you hurt me, or like that was a violation. But like if you two are cool, then it's cool.
Right, right. I like that. I like that line of reasoning, and it. I think for the everyday person, it'll take them a while to get to that spot. But of course,
Well, I'm going to do my best. And
well, that's all you can do, right?
yeah.
That's all you can do. So, how is COVID affecting sex workers?
Oh God, yeah. So COVID, I think it's best to contextualize COVID within a larger, like, COVID was one of many cascading crises within the sex worker movement that I think starts with Trump's election, like, or it's like a Law and Order vice crackdown from like, so really it starts in 2010 with Operation Cross Country, which is billed as an anti-trafficking FBI operation where they are looking for all of the trafficked children that you have been watching in your Law and Order episodes. And so they are cracking down on this problem. They've gotten your letters and they're going to go look for the children. But instead of finding children, they are mostly arresting consensual adult sex workers across the country by LARPing as, you know, clients, right, on the internet and luring sex workers to their arrest, right? And so that's what Operation Cross Country is, and that starts at 2010. But this anti-trafficking, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like there are more anti-trafficking signs in your airport than there were 10 years ago.
Sure.
Right. Like, so this sort of like raising in the temperature of like the moral sex panic that we're in right now has been detrimental to sex workers. And that kind of culminates in the federal passage of Sesta Fosta, which Donald Trump signs into law in 2018. And this is an effort to erase sex workers from the internet, from the spaces that they had built online to schedule and screen their clients. This is when Backpage gets raided. This is when Craigslist Erotic Services disappears. Remember how much fun that was? Remember when you could just Google Craigslist Erotic Services and like read the banana pants shit that people would post on the internet anonymously about their sex life? Remember how that made all of our lives better and anyone that didn't want to see it didn't? Yep. Remember how awesome that was? Well, so that went away. Rent Boy went away. And all of these services that sex workers have been using to like post ads and like ask clients to send them, you know, like their legal name and blah, 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 blah. Yep. All of that goes away. And so sex workers experience this period of like, oh shit, what do we do? And there's always the next thing. But that period of time is really, really vulnerable. So people that had gone from working on the street to working indoors, right, by using Craigslist, are now pushed back onto the street, right? People that had escaped their pimp because they were able to connect to clients directly and didn't need a third party go back to
And that creates a much more dangerous environment for them.
Absolutely. Criminalization pushes the whole thing further underground. So now other online services that are not based in the US, that don't cooperate with law enforcement, that may or may not be selling your information, that like where there's this like big net of like who is on the other side of this, start to pop up, and they're the only game in town. Then COVID hit.
Yep.
So COVID hit, and now you're seeing a couple of different things. First, you're seeing a flood into all kinds of sex work because people are losing their jobs left and right. And so like people are facing economic desperation, and you just know that people that have never done sex work before are now doing or trying to do sex work. And it's dangerous for them to do it online, and it's dangerous for them to do it in person, and it's harder for them to connect to other sex workers to share information about how to do that safely because all of that is like gafucked. And sex workers are not eligible for PPE loans. Even legal sex workers, so strip clubs, right, porn performers, any legal licensed business that is doing, I forget, what's the like middle school guidance counselor word for sexy? It like sounds noxious or like a disease.
Middle school
guidance counselor. Hold on, right? I know those words. Purient. If any business engaged in purient interest, right? Doesn't that sound like an ointment or something? But it like means sexual or whatever. So then you're not eligible for a PPE loan. Sex workers are part of a criminalized class, just like undocumented workers, right? They can't, like, the application process for getting government assistance. So they're like left out of the safety net at a moment when working online is actually really dangerous and has been made harder, and now people are flooding to online sex work. So, and now OnlyFans is starting to
I was going to ask you about OnlyFans.
Like,
I really don't understand OnlyFans.
Okay.
People use it for a lot of different purposes,
they do.
I guess. Yeah. So tell me about that.
So OnlyFans is an example of a lot of things that happened on the internet, which is that their infrastructure and their business model and like the whole thing that was built around the needs of sex workers, right? So basically porn performers, stripper, like sexy workers, like could engage intimately, but digitally with fans, where they could like build a fan, kind of like a comedian, but like fans for porn performers, where they could make like intimate content available. Because there's porn performers have been having a real problem with people stealing their material and making it free. People think porn is free. And so when you go and you get free porn, what you're actually watching is the stolen content of performers that like were paid or may or may not be getting, you know, like whatever from that. So it's a way to sort of limit access where it's like the porn performer and clients directly rather than going through a third party, which could make that available.
But should the performers just be happy for the exposure, Kaytlin?
Exposure is something that people die from, Andrew. I keep trying to tell the people! It's a primrose path to nightmare.
So it seems as if the more barriers you put between the person wanting to purchase the services and the person is actually detrimental to the entire process.
Absolutely. It's the way to increase vulnerability to all parties. including clients. And it's like, I don't think they should be left out of this story, right? Clients are being arrested. Like Robert Kraft had to fight for a whole year, right? A
Yep.
prosecutor in South Florida that was accusing him of paying a 45-year-old woman to massage a different part of his body. That was the crime. And Robert Kraft, right, owner of the Patriots, billionaire, right, friend of Donald Trump, had to show up to court and be like, the government's not allowed to just put cameras in massage rooms. Like, you can't just do that.
Right.
Right. And so, like, I hate to say it, like, probably if Robert Kraft and I ever met, I would be like, oh, this asshole. But, like, thanks, Robert Kraft, for spending the money on defending all of our rights to, like, get naked in a private room truly alone.
I have to ask you, what can so that's something that one of the 1% can do. They have the resources to engage in this kind of
I mean, the
activity.
ACLU also like plays that role. It's like there are other organizations, but like the Mormons are really they're the real freedom of speech advocates. They're like, no, you should just be able to knock on people's doors and talk at them about stuff they don't want to hear. And someone tells them they can't do that, and they get arrested. And like every 5 years or whatever, some Mormon is dragged in front of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is like, no, really, they can do it. I know it's super annoying, but like that's what freedom is.
That's fascinating. So what can people do locally, or what can an individual Joe Schmo person like myself do to help push the needle in favor of sex work and sex workers?
I think one of the best things that you can do is just make it safe and comfortable for the people around you to come out about their sex work experiences, right? I would say, like, talk openly about, I mean, like, not to plug my own shit, but, like, talk openly about the Oldest Profession podcast and, like, the history that you learn and, like, how cool it is, and just sort of, like, raise the temperature on normalizing that, like, sex workers have existed and they've accomplished things and, like, are fully realize people. They're not this stereotype shell of a person that, like, once you've done sex work, like, your soul just, like, leaks out of you and you're like a zombie. Like,
I think this is a great time to pivot towards Victoria Woodhull, who we teased earlier. You did a three-part.
We're doing a 3-part series every month now. Every month we focus on a different old pro. We hired a historian, Dr. Charlene Fletcher, who is amazing.
She's magic. She's
magic. She's fucking magic. She's doing her postdoc at Brown University. She's like an Ivy League professor of American history. She's focused on like the Black experience and the being imprisoned and like all of the different ways that it's a really great fit. Like she comes at this with an incredible depth of knowledge and resources. And so we spent like 4 weeks nerding out on the phone, and she compiles an annotated bibliography and writes the blog posts that we have available on our website. And then I sit down with our producer, who has not been in the weeds on this person. And then I try to tell her the story of this person and why they matter and why I think they're inspiring or a cautionary tale or like what we have to learn from them. And then we cut that into 3 30-minute episodes. And then on the 4th week of every month, Dr. Fletcher hosts a panel with invited guests to like talk about the episode and talk about what we learned or things that like I couldn't cover or that like only the academics can discuss. And so they have that's the Old Pro panel, and you can tune in live on YouTube. So YouTubers, if you like panels, subscribe to the Oldest Profession podcast YouTube channel.
Well, panels with smart people saying smart things, because there's
about old pros.
Right, about old pros. But you learn a lot of stuff just about this Victoria Woodhull. I had no idea who she was before listening to the panel.
Yeah.
And now I think I can ask intelligent questions about Victoria Woodhull. Maybe.
Did you listen to the 3-part series?
Possibly.
Did you listen to the 3-part episode series? I think you'd enjoy it. I really do.
Well, she was a remarkable person. She ran for president. She was a performer too.
Yes, yeah. She was a provocateur, right? She was like a provocative lecturer, and this is kind of like before stand-up is a thing. So like I kind of put her in the lexicon of like OG stand-ups, or she's in that, like, there was an ecosystem of lecturers. Like the
Right.
lecture circuit was like very similar to the stand-up circuit.
Because
I
Mark
think
Twain went on the
exactly.
lecture circuit because he was running out of money or ran out of money. So he
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
had to go around and talk to people.
This is when stand-up paid in the 1870s.
Oh, if not for those halcyon days we could go back to.
Yeah. Yep.
So she did the circuit.
Yeah, she did the circuit several different times in her career. On her ascent, she was like the president. She built a fan base that was like really diverse and really excited. So like spiritualists were big fans of hers. She was like the president of like the spiritualist club. Suffragists got really into her for a while. The Equal Rights Party was like a big deal. So like with abolitionists, she had a lot of sway. Even labor unions, even though she got all of her money from Vanderbilt, who is like a cartoon character of a ruthless capitalist, but she used his money to start a radical newspaper that was the first newspaper to publish Karl Marx' Communist Manifesto. Right. So it's like she's a real fun. She's squirrely.
A multi-dimensional character.
She is. She's a whole person.
And then she went over to Britain. She went over to England.
Yeah, the Vanderbilts asked her to leave. And she did. She was arrested like 5 times for obscenity. Which was some bullshit. She actually spent election day in 1872 when she was on the ballot in jail for printing dirty things in her newspaper, as according to Anthony Comstock, who is like this dumb dude.
I think you're underselling this Comstock guy, from what I understand.
No, Comstock is a demon that continues to haunt us. He like single-handedly delayed the birth control movement in this country by like 50 years. He's the dude that arrested and like ran off Margaret Sanger. And conflated information about birth control and women's bodies with obscenity and pornography. He's the dude that was like, pictures of uteruses, pictures of titties with cum on them. These are indistinguishable from each other. Yeah.
Okay, so so the Vanderbilts ask her to leave the country.
Yeah, his son, she dies, and there's going to be like a will dispute, and it's complicated, and their like dynamics are complicated. But basically, they get over to England, and both Victoria and also her badass contrarian little sister Tenny both marry like the billionaires of England, and so her sister becomes like Lady Cook, and Victoria, by like accident of inheritance, she marries this like kind of basic bitch dude who's just like the son of a wealthy man. So like he's got like, I'll keep you warm and safe money, but not like we can live extravagantly money. So they're like fine. Right. And especially like he marries her, and then so they play this game of like black sheeping him, where they're like not as supportive because like she's a loudmouth whore. And so like they have this whole thing. And so, but like he travels, and so his dad dies, making Victoria's husband the sole inheritor of this multi-generational wealth. And then, before he knows his dad is dead, Victoria Woodhull's father also dies, making Victoria the sole inheritor of this family's wealth that had been excluding her for the decade that they'd been married. And so, yeah, this bitch dies like... she's got fuck you money, and so she invests in planes.
Something that we all aspire to.
She does die a bitter bitch, though. I wish, my wish for Victoria, I wish she could have been happier, but also she wouldn't have done the things that she did if she'd been a go along to get along person. Like, you need to be kind of a contrarian knucklehead to be like, no, I'm gonna run for president. Fuck that, women don't have the right to vote. We'll get my name on the ballot.
Yep. There is no doubt that there is an overlap of personality traits between comedians and our anger issues and people who are activists.
Yes.
There is like this slow simmer of anger that just keeps going and propels us forward in either our art or activism, or our art and activism at the same time.
Yep. There's something there for sure.
There's
They're
something
both basically volunteer positions for most of your career.
that, they are mostly, you're right, volunteer positions. And because of this kind of focus on those things, most of us are like, sure, it doesn't pay okay, but have you seen what I'm doing? It's
Right.
pretty awesome.
I know. It's like, yeah, but like I get to do this. I get up in front of a group of people and I make them have involuntary physiological responses to the words that come out of my mouth. I'm basically a god. Like this, you can't beat that.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't be that at all. And when you're doing activism too, it's like,
Yeah.
well, changing hearts and minds. How is that not some kind of alchemy right there?
For righteousness? Ooh. Oh, that's that's like an 8-ball. That's like, that is nice.
So, Kaytlin, I have to ask you. So, what support services are there for sex workers?
Great question. I would say that actually, yeah, the best recommendation that I can make for anyone seeking services is to reach out to Swap Behind Bars. Swap Behind Bars is really, really well connected to a national network of non-judgmental harm reduction service providers for sex workers. They spearheaded the Rate That Rescue, so they have a lot of information about different so-called like anti-trafficking organizations and can sort of help you navigate which ones actually provide services, but like are kind of cunty about it, right? Which might be worth it if that's all that's available, versus which one it's smoke and mirrors and it doesn't matter how many hoops you jump through. There's just never going to be actual like thoughts and prayers for the whole time, right? Right. And also which ones are trauma-informed and non-judgmental, staffed by former sex workers, or like where you're likely to talk to somebody that has shared experience with you. And then also a network of mutual aid organizations, which operate at a variety of different levels. A lot of it, so just like access to abortion care, is geographic, So there are lots and lots of places where the answer to that question is people that are willing to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cultivating a network of people around you who are supportive and who are knowledgeable.
Yep.
It's so important.
And that is one of the arguments. I came out as a sex worker in I came out to strangers and people in my life in 2014, and then I came out to my parents against my will in 2016 because I'm a coward and an only child. But and then I've made career decisions since then that have just made like you can't talk to me.
So in terms of the 2016 incident, they found out some of your material online, or
here's the thing: if you write, produce, and perform and promote a one-woman show about coming out as a sex worker to your dad, your parents also have the internet, and if they don't, their friends do, and they're like, someone's gonna bring it up. I was like on Facebook every day with like, come see Cuntagious, come see Cuntagious. Yep. And so I'm friends with I had my mom blocked, but like not our neighbors.
Right, because you can only do so much.
I can't even remember most of their names. So they found out and we dealt with it. And I come from a very privileged background. I understand that not everyone is in my position. I do know that there are people that if they told their parents just, that they may end up hurt or dead or exiled, true. Or like that's a thing that happens, right? No one is saying that, but in my case, it's been like 5 years now, and my parents are like starting to get comfortable with it. The professional success is helping, right?
Oh yeah, well that always helps.
Yeah, I got the word prostitution in the style section of the New York Times, so like,
oh wow, there you go, you're legit now. You're legit. Right.
So that's happening, but I will say that I feel less vulnerable and like I'm building a base of power by cultivating a network of friends and family that know my story, where I don't feel like I'm keeping a secret from them. And I encourage more sex workers to cultivate that where they can find it, right? Whether it's other sex workers, whether it's a few chosen friends, whether it's like that want to, and also recognizing that there are things that you can't unsay, and this is still a very dangerous thing to do in a lot of places and a lot of situations.
True enough.
People lose custody of their kids. That happens all the time.
Which is crazy. I remember from our previous conversations that I think your dad is a Green Beret, or an ex-Green Beret.
My father's a war hero, unless you're Vietnamese, in which case it's obviously more complicated.
Right. How did he deal with the revelation?
Denial at first and for a really long time, and then with shared values. I think ultimately he recognized the bravery of what I was doing and was able to kind of put both. It helps that like he's my dad, so we are like psychically the same person. Like I'm a girl, I was raised 40 years younger than him, but like our brains are similar. So when I'm like, I did it for the thrill of it. Like that's why he became a helicopter pilot. So like like he, like we're both and so I think he recognized the shared values of it eventually. And then also there's been a bit of a reckoning with the narrative that we have around being a soldier. Because I made dudes come for money, and he killed people for money, and that's what that is. And so I think we've sort of come at a place, and we were also both 17, right? Like, he joined the army when he was 17, and I became a sex worker when I was 17. So there's neither of us have room for this, you were too young shit. Right. But I'm at a place now where I'm like, maybe we were both too young, actually.
Oh, well, that's one of the benefits of getting older, is that you do get that kind of perspective.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you have to say to people? And I'm sure you've heard this a million times. You only go into this kind of work if you're broken inside.
I mean, I think that's probably more true of comedy than it is of the oldest profession. From what
I've seen it is, but
right. Like at least you get paid in sex work, like have some fucking respect. Yeah.
Best answer ever. What kind of advice would you give to people going into sex work or people who are just early on?
It's very I learn as much as you can, cultivate relationships, and always listen to your body. If there's and this is really, really hard to do when you need money or you're stressed out or there's a lot of things going on. But if you find yourself sitting in the parking lot or walking into a situation or even in the middle of a situation and an alarm goes off in your head, stop listening to any story, anything that anyone else has to say, and leave. Right. Just leave. Like, yeah. Being able to recognize danger. Yeah, but like, I want to tell I needed that information more as a 20-something navigating the dating scene in New York than I ever did as a sex worker. So that is like, I think my advice really to young people. And maybe that's just what getting older is like learning to listen to your body, or like being able to suss out the difference between like stage fright and no, your animal body knows that you are in danger even though you are in denial. Like, so maybe that's a lost prayer, and like 17-year-olds are just bad at like listening to themselves, but like
there is so much inertia when you're young.
Yeah.
And that inertia means that you just don't think straight.
Well, yeah, because 17-year-old, I mean, like, fuck it, you don't have any legal rights. Right? You've been told what to do, right? Gym teachers have been forcing you to ignore that alarm in your head for the whole fucking time, right? Your body knew you were in danger when you were getting down to your undershorts in a locker room full of your most judgmental peers. That wasn't safe, right? Yeah.
Kaytlin, from your time being a sex worker.
Yes.
Do you have a crazy story?
I have lots of crazy stories.
Well, when I say crazy story, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
I think this is like this is one of the it's a lost story, and it's a story about the what you give up when you commit to living a double life. When I was so I did sex work in high school, and I worked for this lovely older woman who was like this chain smoking North Carolina person that like ran this network of like escorts and had been an escort herself and like took no shit and was adorable. But she died. And she died, I want to say like 7 years after I'd stopped doing sex work. So I was like in a really different place in my life, right? Like I had been in high school, like my first year of college a little bit. And then I was out of politics and I was like doing comedy and I was like something, and I was home for like Thanksgiving or Christmas or some kind of thing. And I was in my upstairs, like childhood bedroom, the bathroom that I had been at that age or whatever. And I got this weird call from a former client, which was kind of jarring, but like, I stayed on the phone. Like it wasn't, like he never hurt me. Like it was just, he just didn't know my real name. That's kind of it. Otherwise he's just like a dude that I fucked who gave me money. And he wanted to let me know that she had passed. And I said, thank you. And it hit me. And and then I went downstairs and had dinner with my parents. And where do you start? So like, so I just holding that grief, that loss, that emotional like connection with this like other part of my life. And I can't share that. I can't. Yeah. And that's because I hadn't cultivated, there was no one I could tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're heading down towards the end of the hour. Is there a question you wanted me to ask you, but I didn't, not talking about plugs where people can find you online, but was there a topic, a subject you wanted to speak about, but we just didn't get around to it?
I mean, no, I feel like I could talk all day. It's my favorite thing. You want to talk about the politics of decriminalizing sex work, the path to that, you want to get in the weeds on games and polls and state, tactics. We could do that. I don't know that anyone wants to nerd out that hard.
I've been on 538 way too much.
Definitely for sure. Someday we'll get drunk or do cocaine or something, and I'll be like, in Wisconsin we're polling at this. The opposition is it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm teasing you guys with analysis, but you can't start getting into the numbers without like contextualizing it with like more and more, and
sure,
it's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I want to tell you a little bit about being married, being newlyweds in this fun pandemic era, because
please do.
Yeah, so my husband and I got married in October, and then we started planning for a renovation for our apartment in New York because I married, money. And we were supposed to start that in March, and our plan was to move into my West Village apartment that I'd been like renting out on Airbnb and been sort of like living my like comedian life in. And so we were going to live there together for the summer, and then move back into like our apartment with like a bathroom in the apartment, and like other luxuries.
Minor things.
Whatever, like once you get used to pooping in a hall, it's like actually very freeing. I would hate for the toilet to be in the 350 square foot apartment. That's, you get to leave shit behind. So we, as the day we moved into the West Village apartment early, because we were afraid of getting locked down in the Chelsea apartment that we had packed all of our shit into, right? There was no couch, there was no food, there was no cooking utensils. So we moved into the West Village, and like as the city kind of as everything closed, right? Broadway closed, and I, went to the grocery store every day and like stocked up on popsicles. And then my husband made the call and was like, it was kind of one of our first power struggles as like a newlywed relationship, because I was like, all right, we're just locking down in the West Village, and Trey was like, we're going to North Carolina, like we're packing our shit and we're gonna go. And we went to my parents' lake house. We brought our next door neighbor and childhood friend, who we'd both known since high school. He was like part of the same debate team that we'd all met on.
Good.
And quarantined in my parents' lake house for 2 weeks. And then we've been ping-ponging back and forth since then with like the clothes that we brought, because we had no idea how long we were going to be here.
Yep.
And so it's been really discombobulated. So I went on antidepressants like a week before I started feeding the wild animals at the lake house. And now I can't really tell if if the drugs are working or if I've just developed like an actual bond with this possum that I've named Steve. Like, because like we're not country people, and like so now we've done like 3 seasons, and so there's all kinds of like country house shit and wild animals and like things that we have to deal with, and we're like we drop off our laundry, so like it's like we don't have being in a house together skills, so it's been really fun to navigate and negotiate as like a married couple, like who does the dishes when our life in New York, like we ate out like 5 nights a week, right. So like
there is this belief, maybe it's a myth out there, that if you don't have some kind of emotional disturbance, you can't be a comedian. Now that you're on the antidepressants, you find yourself as funny.
I don't know.
I think you're as funny as ever, but
thank you. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I did an outdoor show in Hillsborough, North Carolina recently, and I did well. And it felt good to crush in front of like people I came up with. When I left as an open micer, and now I'm back and it's cool. No, I feel funny. I also feel happier. Weirdly, it's easier for me to come. So I don't know, because I know that was a big concern that I had.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard stories about with other folk having issues about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But now that I'm not like gnawing or like not grinding my teeth like while I'm being eaten out, it's easier to focus.
I think you could be a spokesperson for whatever medication you're on. I can come. I still come.
I still come. And yeah, it's...
That would be the greatest t-shirt. Your face, the medication, bottom, I still come. Right there.
Yeah. It's a lot,
It sounds like a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of like, so we had to move again yesterday under duress. So there was a leak. My parents' house is like half a basement. The lake house is like mostly underground, and so we had a hurricane.
Yeah.
And the wall started to leak, and so we woke up to like an inch of standing water, and they had to throw the rugs away and like do this whole thing. And so my mom was like, "Oh well, we need to fix that," and I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let us know when you're doing that, and we will move back in with my parents." And instead of doing that, some dude just showed up 2 days ago and knocked on the door and said, "We started digging." So we packed up our shit and we moved in with my parents for the 3 days that construction, 1 day for digging, 1 day for sealing, and then 1 day for refilling. Fine. Yeah. Quick job. So then we drove back to the lake house, right, after being with my parents for 3 days, which, like, no one is their best self with their parents. I feel like we all turn into nightmares. So it's like, like just starting to get on each other's nerves. And we go back to the lake, we get there, and the leak is fixed, but the internet has been cut.
Oh, no.
And so... severed, right? Just severed. So we packed up our shit... and moved back in with Ember and Brandon at midnight last night. So,
wow, that is quite a story, quite a journey. Yeah. And you're right. If you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have internet,
right? It's that right. It's just yeah. You can't even email that you're not going to be at work.
Right.
Like, right.
Kaytlin Bailey. It's good to see you. It's good to hear that you are doing well.
Thank you.
That you're and that you dare I say, and then you may bristle at this, seem to be thriving.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've hit my 30s now, so I feel like
30s is the crucible.
30s,
that is the place where things happen.
I think so, right? Your 20s, it's like you get superpowers, but like they're weird, and you're just like it's
Well, I
So
don't, I don't want to, I try not to scare people who are in their 30s or who are just entering their 30s, but the burden of adulthood really comes. I mean, this has just been my own personal experience and what I've seen with other people. But yeah, but you seem to have a very good foundation.
thank you.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I'm really excited about the Oldest Profession podcast and what we're building there, and I'm really excited about a future where live performances return
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and getting Horror's Eye View on its feet, and I feel very creatively inspired, and
That's good.
I'm pulling the tools around me to make make the things I want to make,
That's the
which
trick for
feels
me during
great.
the pandemic is that staying creatively active
Hmm.
and pushing whatever limits I can.
Yeah.
From my bedroom.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had a 3 month meltdown, just it just snot bubble tear crying and gnashing of teeth. And the pandemic has stolen my work from me. I
Yeah.
can't do Horse Eye View. Fuck the universe. Right. I
Yeah.
yelled at the moon. And then I started doing.
I think that's a healthy process of healing, yelling at the
Yeah.
moon for a
Scream
certain
cry.
period of time. Scream cry.
Yeah.
Scream
Scream
cry.
cry. I
Yeah.
highly recommend.
So, hey, I just wanted to mention that I signed up for your newsletter.
Thank you. Yeah, the Old Pro newsletter. So now you can be the most interesting person at a party because you can know what's up with what's going on with sex workers around the
I
world.
will drop all kinds of sex worker knowledge at whatever gathering I'm at. I'm sure my girlfriend and her coworkers will be very happy with me when I do so.
Yay!
Yay. Kaytlin Bailey, where can people find you online?
Well, first check out the oldestprofessionpodcast.com. Very, very proud of it. You can meet the whole team and see all of our social media and upcoming events. We're also going to have merch there pretty soon, so you can buy Old Pro t-shirts and sweatshirts and stickers. You can also check me out online. I'm at Kaytlin Bailey on Twitter and Instagram, and you can also follow the show at Old Pro Podcast.
Kaytlin Bailey, thanks for coming on. Everyone in the chat, thanks for showing up. Thanks for contributing. I had a great time, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Always fun.
This was awesome. I miss you, Andy, and hope to see you on the other side of this.
I hope to be here if I could be so rash and brave to say that I hope to be here when we're all out of this. I am just in my bunker at this point and just writing this out for all intents and purposes. All right. Well, take care, everyone. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, and it's going to be a live